Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Yeah.
You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show till Mets do us part. John from Brooklyn, Gibby reps NJ. With the other team, I don't care what your friends say. Mets fans, we focus like a sensei. Listen to the podcast Monday, Wednesday. Made a couple bad plays, but we still won. Character, yup, we're gonna build some. Are you gonna check the pod? Is real fun. Just like Mookie, I will sign. So invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show.
Available now on all streaming platforms. If you love the New York Mets, check out Till Mets Do Us Part. Enough rapping. Let's get to yapping.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Til Mets Do Us Part. We are live on YouTube, live on Twitter, like we are each and every single week, albeit this week coming to you a little bit late and a little bit differently. Some stuff going on in the world of John and Ibby that prevented us from doing a show last week. That was my bad, or at least doing a show together. That was my bad because I was moving and things were super hectic. And then this week, Ibby had some last minute things pop up, and that prevented us from getting our show off on Wednesday, but it is all good. Ibby sends his love, wants everybody to know everything is fine. Just had some stuff going on with the family and all that stuff. Things you got to take care of from time to time, and you got to put the podcast, you got to put your Mets fandom aside for a moment and get down to the business at hand. But John Sapanaro coming to you live from North Hollywood, California. Things look a little bit differently because I am in my brand new apartment. The move is exhausting, but it has gone well. Basically fully settled in, ready to talk Mets, just a couple hours away from the start of the Subway Series, the first round of the Subway Series between our New York Mets and the New York Yankees. So without further ado, let's bring in our guest. And really, in this case, it is co-host of the show this week. We have worked together in the past before, but you and I have been talking off air about doing something where it's just you and I, and we just get the opportunity to chop it up like we're going to have for like the next hour or so, 2 hours, whatever. Who knows how long we're going to go. Ladies and gentlemen, from the Shea and Sons podcast, you know him as Keith, a.k.a. at Kicking It with Keith, a.k.a. Keith Diaz. What's up, man? How you doing?
John, what up, man? Congrats on a new spot. That's a beautiful thing, man. I love to see it. It looks very nice already. I like it. I like the little detail. Lovely, lovely. What's going on? Till Mets Do Us Part familia. I hope everyone's well. Shout out to Ibby. Thank you again for the opportunity. Appreciate you both. And hope everyone's doing well. And yeah, there's some game going on today in the Bronx that we're going to talk about, huh?
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about what is coming up in the Bronx in like 2 hours. Ibby checking in the comments. He wanted to be here with us, but just couldn't make it happen. Saying, my guy's about to bring it, have a show. Thank you for that. And then we have Aunt Rivera, buddy of both of ours, saying the best crossover since Avengers Endgame, which I appreciate. You know what? I'm a little jealous, Keith, before we get into the Mets conversation, because whenever you do a show with Aunt Rivera, he's able to bill it as the Subway to Shea and Sons podcast crossover, which is catchy. And I'm a pretty creative guy. I was racking my brain. I was trying to come up with a catchy way to combine the names of our show, but I don't think it works. So I'm a little jealous of the Subway to Shea and Sons crossover that you could do with Aunt Rivera.
Till Mets Do Us Part. Till Mets Do Us Part and Sons. That's a little, no. It's all right. Yeah. We could just roll with like the two guys that like get into the most arguments on Twitter. We could just
That's fair.
That's the really, really productive conversationalist. I honestly bow down to you. It's insane how you do it. It's actually, I love reading it. And then me, I just tell people to shut the F up because it's just stupid, the nonsense. But you do it in the most devastating way, like with the dagger right here. It's insane, bro. It's insane. It's insane.
Well, I appreciate that, man, because you know, I get flack sometimes. I stopped with the like being so aggressive in like the shut the F up way. Part of it was just like I just got tired of doing it. And part of it was Tim Ryder, who's a really good dude, reached out to me and he was like, man, you know, I don't know if you need to like go so hard at like fellow Mets fans and stuff. And I was like, you know what, man, like I disagree.
I agree. I agree that you disagree.
Yeah. And I was like, because some people are just dumb and they need to be called dumb. And so I guess after thinking about it a little bit, the way that I softened it was I just took the vulgarity out like most of the time. And I'm not like, shut the F up or F you, you idiot. And I'm just like, you know what? I could say it without being vulgar and it's got the same punch. And so that's what I've started to do. But I've been called every name in the book. Oh, yeah. I got told earlier this week that I was old. I was middle-aged, out of shape and balding by somebody because they said that Carlos Mendoza punted the last game against the Pirates because he didn't pinch hit for Azócar in the 4th inning.
Oh my good Lord.
Dude,
you guys want to watch Jose Azócar win baseball games for your favorite Mets or not? Like, what are we doing here? I mean,
you know, listen, man, like, you know, look, we can start there, but before we do, I want to jump in. Odd Villain saying TMDUP, Queens, shake hands. You know, maybe that's the best way to kind of combine the names or whatever. Carson saying John making Twitter enemies couldn't be me. I think Carson is the only person who rivals you or I in terms of getting into
the best dark humor man I've ever met, hands down. Hands down. The man is a master at it.
He really, really is. Look, let's talk about the series that just wrapped up with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Look, Mets are much better than the Pirates, obviously. Records indicate that. The rosters indicate that. So many things are indicative of the Mets being a better baseball team than Pittsburgh, right? On paper, when you watch it, whatever. But when you watch this series, and I didn't have a chance to watch every inning the way that I normally do, just with the move going on, but I was keyed in.
God bless you.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say, man. Like everything would tell you that the Mets are a much, much, much better team than the Pittsburgh Pirates, except the way the series kind of went. Look, the Mets take 2 or 3, right? And you win the series. That's all good. Sometimes you get shut out. I don't put a lot of stake in losing one game to a bad team. Yeah. But when you look at the totality of those 3 games and the way the Mets scored runs and their inability to hit with runners in scoring position, if you didn't know any better, if you just landed on Earth at the start of that series, you'd be like, so are these 2 teams equally matched? Because that's kind of how that series went. And, you know, leading into this big series with the Yankees, big series with the Red Sox, got the Dodgers coming up soon, 3 very good teams. It doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in terms of what you think the Mets can do against these better teams since they played down to the Pittsburgh Pirates.
They should have got swept, John. Simple. They should have got swept because of the negligence, respectfully. They're going to win because they're going to fall over on their own 2 feet because they're just that much good. They're better than just so much of the competition in baseball. And we both agree that this is a really good baseball team. But they, in retrospect, they should have gotten swept because it took a Pete Alonso sac fly, right, to win the first game. Second game, it took an Edwin Diaz heart attack, which we're all used to by now, to win the game. And then the third game, obviously, it just was our night, you know, the rain. And it just looked like one of those nights that were just like, let's get to the off day. And personally, I've been very level-headed with the team this year. The only series that really annoyed me, that was actually truly upset, that I actually was angry, was the Minnesota Twins series. And that was almost a month ago. So I've been fine. Even with some of the losses, I've been okay. We could lose a game. It's all good. This series, though, was upsetting because of what lies ahead. And you can make the hypothesis that they just took it lightly because of what you saw. Or you can just say they needed a day because they've been playing baseball almost every single day. They look like a team that just needed a kick in the butt. And in a weird way, this series that's coming up this weekend is the one that you probably would look for with this team. This team in the past has done really well with reacting with emotions. So it's very frustrating when we don't see them with emotion. They kind of just play like they're zombies sometimes. So this is a good series to get them up, get the bloods flowing, the juices flowing, and see a little bit more fire. It's also another thing too, when you see them at home and not play really well because they're such a really good home team. Yeah, they won the first 2 games, and hey, I'm happy. I'm not trying to complain, but baseball's a very weird sport. Like, karma's a real thing in baseball. It'll come back around when you least expect it. You can't take everything for granted. So, you have to also respect the opponent. It's something I've said many times. And when I talk to you, I know you'll listen to me. But I feel like if me and you were to just say it out loud, like in a public setting, it would just get ignored. People just think, oh, yeah, we're going to beat them. Well, guys, there is an opportunity now that the Mets can go off and show the world how good they are. But because they took the last series for granted, it could come and smack them in the face. A humble pie is a so it's just a little frustrating. It wasn't the worst series, honestly. It could have been way worse. They could have gotten swept. They still found a way to win, which shows that this team is good. And it gives you a little bit of optimism, plus a day off. Plus, they didn't have to travel. They're already in the city. So they have everything they need to go and win 9 innings in the Bronx and it not be too much of a heart attack in your hands,
Yeah, no, look, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. That publicly, privately in our group chats and whenever you and I talk separately as well, like I don't consider myself to be an optimist. I think I'm a realist, both in my sports fandom and in my life, but I think I skew a little bit as far as sports go towards the optimism side, simply because I can't, and I've said this on the show before, I can't see the point in watching sports if you just think everything's going to be terrible.
I agree.
Like, there is no point. Go do something else then. Even if your team is the worst team in the sport, you find a way. It's Happy Harvey Day, or it's R.A. Dickey going for a Cy Young in a lost season, things like that, where you're like, okay, we can still celebrate the individual accomplishments of Jacob deGrom winning Rookie of the Year and, little things along the way where it might not be must-see TV. It might not be the best thing in the world that you've ever seen, but it's something that you can hang your hat on. Hey, we got 3 prospects that I really want to watch come the second half of the year because they're all going to be here. And I think that sometimes Mets fans lose the plot a little bit, especially since the change in ownership has occurred, and especially since David Stearns has taken over and been fully able to run this franchise the way that he wants. And I think a lot of Mets fans keep waiting for the other shoe to drop the way that it would have in the Wilpon era. And I think that is misguided at this point, because I know they haven't won a World Series, but I think that what they have done, what they have built in a short time, the pitching lab, you see, like the Mets used to sign people and whatever could go wrong would go wrong. All of a sudden the Mets are bringing in guys and it's like, oh, actually this went really well. Severino, Manaea, Clay Holmes, the early returns, Griffin Canning, the early returns. You're looking and you're seeing this stuff happen where you're like, wow, this could actually be better than we expected. Not only as good as we expected, but even better still. And the other thing is, on the day-to-day, I try not to get too bogged down in the minutia of this team lost a game, right? So when you talk about the game 2 days ago, of the 3 games in that series, that loss bothers me the least because sometimes you just get shut out. Sometimes you just lose a game.
Yep.
The other 2 games, while they won and you don't throw wins back, I agree with you.
Yep.
You look at it and you're like, but they were uglier.
Yep.
Somehow it's like, man, they escaped by the skin of their teeth.
Yep.
And you can acknowledge that while also acknowledging what you said. The travel. They don't have to go far to go to the Bronx now. After that, they just go up to Boston. They've played a lot of games. They're going to continue to play a lot of games. I think they have 22 games now with only 2 off days built in, and that includes a trip out to Colorado and here in Los Angeles. So there's a lot that people, I think, lose sight of either on a grand scale. When they look at the Mets, they still think it's the Wilpon Mets.
Yep.
And I think, Keith, in the day-to-day, they lose sight of like, man, guys are human beings. Like it drove me insane that people were like, how, and I think this is the perfect microcosm of exactly what I'm talking about. People are like, oh my God, why is Juan Soto out of the lineup? Is he okay? Like, man, it's okay for him to get a day off against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Honestly, dude, he played in every game so far. Most players don't play every single game anymore. The Mets are blessed right now with 3 guys who are superstars playing at a high level who want to play every day and play damn near every day in Soto, Alonso, and Lindor. Most other teams don't even have one guy like that. So if you're going to pick a soft spot to sit a guy down, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. You can just sit a guy down sometimes. It's fine.
Yeah, this propensity to press the emergency button for everything, it kind of like gives me this like how long are we gonna like ignore the fact that this organization is in a really good spot? And how long are we going to just sit down and just for any little thing, just jump to like code red, the biggest, worst thing that could possibly happen? The guy got a day off. Everyone thought he was hurt. Now, you know, what's so funny is that like a lot of the folks in the Latin community, they kind of saw on Instagram that he was fine. He was doing some business venture throughout the day. So he clearly knew he had the day off and stuff like that. And when I saw people worried about his health, I was like, guys, he's fine. It's a normal work day. He got the day off. This happens. You know, we've been spoiled by Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso for working so diligently on their craft every single day that even when they, you know, get an inning or two off, which is very rare, that to see it with the new prized possession, it's like, oh my God. But guys, this. I spoke recently to Will Salmon of The Athletic, and shout out to him. And he made it very, very clear to me. He couldn't have said it any more clear to me personally. He told me the Mets are looking at every single player and the whole infrastructure as a long-term thing. They're not looking at tomorrow. They're looking at, hey, this guy's not going to be used. He's been used a lot. He needs a rest. This player needs a break. They're just going to do it. And listen, there's a lot of people that remember the days of the 90s and the 80s where guys never took a day off, and it probably shortened careers, or it probably like it lulled them longer than it should have. But now,
also, Keith, sorry to interrupt, but a lot of those guys were on amphetamine, steroids, and HGH. Come on.
Yeah. And look now, like, I think a lot of people tend to ignore the fact that even though so many players now get hurt, and you know, it's a really interesting like study to see, wow, these guys get hurt at a high rate. But it's probably because now you're looking back at the first half of the career versus the second half, and now they probably didn't realize that they had to do certain things differently, you know, going into the league and in the minors and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of like factors into this. Obviously, there's anomalies and stuff like that, but the Mets have some of the most state-of-the-art technology and people making sure that everything is smooth sailing. And I don't know what more they need. They have a guy who last year had the worst ranked fastball in all of baseball, pitching like he is like prime freaking Mike Mussina. You know, like I don't understand what more you guys need. Like how many, like there was moments in this season in series that we've even struggled in where they plucked the guy out of the farm and said, go throw me 3 innings, and it worked. And it's like, you know, like you guys got to just give them the opportunity to fail, because truthfully, you make a great point. That Wilpon like ism, because I guess that's what it is. That Wilponism is like truly like something that people need to seek therapy for, because it was such a dark cloud over, you know, being a fan of a sport, not just like rooting for the Mets, just being a fan, like waking up and talking to your buddies about, hey, you know, like how we're going to lose today. That's some real sicko shit. Excuse my language. But like, that is like really like, think about that for a minute. And like doing the Debbie Downer stuff. I mean, you don't get bored of that? Like you want to win, right? You don't think those guys want to win? I mean, the Mets to me are at a stage in this process on the David Stearns and Steve Cohen where you just honestly got to shut up and fan. Shut up and fan, be the best fan you can be, and they'll piss you off, yeah, but they're not going to have a guy get hit by a boar. They're not going to have a guy walk down some stairs and be out for like 3-4 months. They're not going to have, you know, these weird occurrences, you know,
guys getting hand, foot, and mouth disease. And
for real. Like, and I mean, honestly, they're never going to field a lineup like they fielded in like 2013. Like that shit is never going to exist. I mean, never is ever going to exist under Steve Cohen. It'll never happen. 2023 sucked because it was just a weird year, but you still got 41 home runs from a guy. You had a 30-30 season. So like, honestly, look at it like truly from like 80,000 feet up in the air.
Absolutely. And who knows? I mean, that season is ancient history now, but also who knows how that team responds in the second half if they don't sell off some of those pieces. Now, I think they made the right move selling off those pieces, but, they clearly said, this ain't our night. We're going to go into the proverbial tank or whatever. We're going to get what we can. And I think that was the right move, especially with the market for some of those guys like Verlander and Scherzer. But, I think that team finishes much stronger if they just hold on to those guys too, which again, different topic for a different time. Has nothing to do with this season, but I think this is a good one from DMAC, and I've been ignoring the comments a little bit. I have a lot starred. We're going to get into them. DMAC says people freak out a little too much with Mendy trying to find at bats for guys on the bench. And I think that's kind of my issue when somebody sits there and they go, well, Mendy punted this game. I don't understand how you let Azokar take that at bat. First of all, I know Azokar's a fringe major league player at best. He's a guy who should be, shout out to Ryan Finkelstein, who said he's lucky to be cashing major league checks right now. I think all of that is true. But if you look beyond the 26-man roster, the Mets don't have another place to turn right now with the injuries. He needs to be on the roster. He has actually given the Mets a few good at-bats over the course of his tenure here with them. I don't think until the Pittsburgh game, I don't think he had started a game in like 10 games. You want to get Soto off of his feet. And what good are you doing for Azokar, for a guy who has to be here right now because you have no other option, if after one at bat, you take him out of the game? This is not a situation where, he's getting that at bat in the 8th inning or the 7th inning. It's the 4th inning of the game, Keith. They're down 2-0. I know you don't want to squander opportunities, but it is important for these guys. I know everybody always laughs about the Buck Showalter, like we got to get guys going and that kind of thing. But I think it's very clear that Mendy is not Showalter. There's not this deferential treatment to veterans. He's not giving Azokar so much like, oh my God, we got to see what this guy can do. I think it's just a situation where it was early in the game. You were giving Soto a full day off. If you use Jeff McNeil there, then Jeff McNeil has to stay in the game, come to whatever end. You also lose the ability to pinch hit with him later. And if you use Brett Beatty there, then you have to move somebody else to the outfield or bring in Jeff McNeil anyway. Are you trying to use 2 players on your bench in one move in the 4th inning to beat the Pittsburgh Pirates on May 14th?
What's crazy is that like the funniest part about that is that like Mendy is giving a guy who doesn't even get routine like substitutional reps. He's giving a guy an opportunity to maybe turn his head, maybe raise an eyebrow. That's the point of managing. You also gotta like, some people really forget that these are not robots. These are human beings. And people think, oh, that guy's just happy to be there. That shit does not exist. That does not exist. Not in this team. Well, maybe in another organization. Guys are going to be called upon and they have to do the job. And they are told this. This is not an easy, like, oh, yeah, I'm going to sit on the bench. I'm going to chill. I'm with the Mets. I'm Steve Cohen, blah, Soto, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't exist here. You are going to be required to do many things if you're on the major league team. Look at how many guys are playing multiple positions. And guys, if they're sitting too long, Mendy's aware of that. Mendy's not crazy. Mendy knows, I got to get this guy some at bats. Like, I know this doesn't have anything to do with the Mets, but I'm a huge Alex Cora guy. And I recently watched a documentary for the Red Sox last year, and there were so many moments where things were going absolutely wrong last year for the Red Sox. Absolutely wrong. And he's like, if it goes wrong, it's only because it just happens that way. But that guy that I picked, that he needed that moment. He needed to fail. He needed to remind himself he is a baseball player. Because if you're staying too long on the bench, just sitting there rotting, you're forgetting that you're a baseball player. The part of playing baseball is getting those very rare successful moments because you're set up to fail. So if Azokar is playing once every 10 days, because that's what it feels like, and it just so happens he gets his first at bat with the bases loaded, he has to swing the bat. He has to figure out something. Now, he shot himself in the foot swinging at the first pitch, But will everybody be kicking and screaming if it was a 10-pitch at bat and then he strikes out? Probably not. So he did himself no favors.
And let's be honest, it's not like he popped that first pitch up. He did hit it. He hit a line drive.
Would have been a sac fly if it would have been one out.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is not popping up on the first pitch or rolling over 60 miles an hour to the shortstop or hitting it back to the pitcher weakly on the first pitch.
Or watching 3 straight strikes down the middle, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, the other part of it too is, because I completely agree with you as far as the human element is concerned. It's something that I always preach on this show as somebody who didn't play baseball at that level, certainly, but used to travel for work, and just what it feels like when you get off a plane and then you have to go do something. It's just like, it's exhausting, dude. And my schedule was not, in some ways, I guess it was maybe harder, quote unquote, than what a baseball schedule is. And in some ways, obviously much easier, because it wasn't, getting on a plane, flying to another city 3 days later, flying to another city, and then having to be, do something athletic necessarily. But, the human element is so important, but it's also the way people pick and choose that really irks me. Because the other person who didn't come through is Luis Torrens in that first inning with the bases loaded. Now, I'm not trying to dump on Torrens, right?
I know
he has been great for this team. He is arguably, adjusted for the cost of acquisition, maybe the best acquisition that Stearns has made so far, getting this guy for $100,000 and entrenching him as your backup catcher for the next however many years. But people seem to have no criticism of him striking out with the bases loaded when he's a career 229 hitter, his career on base percentage, 291, his career slugging, 361. I could go on. I don't want to dump on him, but when you look at what he's done this year, it's been very good, but let's not confuse Luis Torrens with the second coming of Mike Piazza. So to turn around...
John, not to interrupt you, real quick, random question. What's the easiest food to eat in the jungle? Do you know?
The easiest food to eat in the jungle?
I'll tell you. The low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. Right.
And that's Azucar.
That's why Azucar gets the blame, because he's the 26th man on the roster. But yeah, dude, you're spot on. When you sit there and you realize that this is not MLB The Show ratings. This is not, he's a 78. And so if you hit it perfect, then you're probably going to have a good result. It's like, no, he's a human being who needs reps. He's a baseball player who needs to play baseball, and he hasn't played baseball in basically 10 days. And to pinch hit for him in the fourth inning of a game where you're down 2-0, to me is ludicrous, especially if your goal was to get one of your 3 stars and the biggest financial investment any baseball team has ever made in any one single player off of his feet for one game in May. I think that is completely missing the forest through the trees. Shout out to Edge, jumping in here saying, good collab, fellas. Keep up the good work on the super chat. Thank you for the $1.99 on the super chat. Just to say something nice. Shout out to Edge. Absolutely.
To get Edge to say something nice, I mean, we must be doing something right, John. I'm just saying. No disrespect to be. Maybe there's something growing here. I'm just saying.
Let me switch gears a little bit to a person that you and I have criticized. I'll bring up this comment from James Dowling to lead into it. It says, when does Chavez get blamed for the offense? Situational hitting / runners in scoring position has been pretty bad since he's been here.
Yeah.
I have been banging this drum. People have told me that I'm stupid. People are told me that Chavez is better than I think he is, and they've pointed to certain numbers in certain spots. People have told me that hitting coaches don't do anything, despite the fact that every Major League Baseball team employs at least one. The Mets have 2, so they must do something, right? Because my argument has always been this, Keith. I understand that the guy, Chavez in this case, can't go and take the at-bat for Lindor or Pete or Azucar or whoever. Pick your person. But when it becomes a long-standing narrative and a long-standing trend of bad situational hitting, bad hitting with runners in scoring position, despite the personnel, isn't that kind of the one thing you can blame on a hitting coach because of a failure of organizational philosophy? All of a sudden, Juan Soto is having one of the worst starts with runners in scoring position in his career. And it has to do with, I'm sure, him pressing a little bit first year. Again, the human element. But you don't think that maybe the organizational philosophy fed through Chavez and also maybe through Barnes is a bit of a problem?
Oh, man. So one of my favorite things David Stearns has ever done in charge of the New York Mets is keeping Chavez, Barnes, right, as the duo, and keeping Jeremy Hefner. And that's going to sound crazy because I'm very critical of Chavez as well, is because it's also like, show me you can do this. Like, show me like you deserve to be here. And to me, I feel like Hefner has gotten to the point where I wouldn't be surprised if teams sniff around for him to maybe manage. Like, I can see that becoming a future for him. Where does Eric Chavez go after the Mets? I would love someone to tell me, and don't tell me it's the Oakland A's, because the Oakland A's are doing just fine. They hit the ball just well. I believe Eric Chavez, once this is all said and done, whenever his time, ends with the Mets, he'll be offering courses on Instagram of how to hit the ball, and we'll see if anybody's going to take them, because that is the next step. I'm going to explain something real quick, and I don't want to be too long-winded, but the hitting philosophy for the Mets is so simple yet so complicated. It is literally a mixed bag of both. The Mets want to destroy fastballs. It is as simple as it can get. You can look at the deep line metrics. The Mets want to hunt fastballs, and they're very good against fastballs. They will once they make contact, they will make sure that the other team is going to pay for it, right? Now, it's when they hunt fastballs is the problem. Now, you can hunt fastballs whenever you want, but if you're really, really good at hunting fastballs, why hunt them in positions where you're almost set up to fail? And it just feels like the pitcher has given so many advantages when certain batters are in certain counts looking for certain pitches and they're just hunting fastball. Now, I'm okay with hunting fastball, but this situational hitting dilemma that we're under has got to change. And it just feels like some guys, there was a few, I don't remember who the opposition was. I'm sure somebody in the chat will remember, or maybe you will, John. I forgot who the team was, but we got back-to-back strike threes on Nimmo and Vientos not too long ago. I vaguely remember. And I remember Vientos swung at 3 straight pitches on the dirt because he was waiting for a fastball, and he clearly was fooled. And Nimmo was against a guy throwing curveball and all this junk and everything. And he was dying to get a curveball because I could hear Gary Cohen, a very pro curveball pitcher, and he throws a fastball right down the middle. He doesn't hit it. And I'm like, well, he throws a fastball literally right down the middle, but he's being told all of a sudden, a team that hits fastballs left and right, make this guy's a curveball guy, look for the curveball. The pitcher knows that. But then you put yourself in a position 3-2 where you have to defend, and he's probably defending against curveball literally right down the pipe. So it's like they get themselves in. I don't want to be the best 3-2 hitting team. I don't. I think that's like almost you're asking for the world from this team, because a 3-2 count, I think you have like a 5% chance of getting on base. So why don't, and I stress this so much, John, put yourself in hitting counts. Just if you can one day, John, do this to yourself. Count how many counts the Mets get themselves in hitter counts: 2-0, 3-0, 3-1, 2-1. And you will be shocked at the success that this team can find themselves in when they get themselves in hitters counts. And I feel like they see way too many pitches at the wrong time.
I can agree with that. There is a such thing as being not too patient, but passive, where patient crosses over into passive. And a lot of what you're saying kind of reminds me of, I know he didn't have a great year for us, and, it's kind of over the hill, whatever. But, people talked a lot about, why don't guys just go the other way like JD Martinez? And it's like, not everybody can do that. It takes a special kind of guy to hit the ball the other way with authority, the way JD Martinez in his prime, or David Wright, or Mike Piazza was able to do. And I think what you're talking about now in terms of patience, you look at a guy who is generational at it, like Juan Soto. Now, he also benefits from being in hitters' counts. To say that he doesn't would be insane. But he is not a guy who's intimidated by getting down in the count. He's a guy who has a good knowledge of the strike zone. Not everybody can do that. And you see the benefit it's had for a guy like Pete because his issue was chasing. So him seeing more pitches isn't necessarily a bad thing. Some of these other guys might need to be a little bit more aggressive. I think a guy who's got a really happy medium in this offense is Francisco Lindor. I think Lindor goes up every time with a plan. Every single at bat. Now, it's obviously not always going to work, but I think when you watch Lindor, and we've seen him now for years here as a Met, when you watch him, he very rarely seems confused by what the pitchers are doing to him. Again, doesn't mean he always gets a hit. Doesn't mean he's always going to drive in the run. Doesn't mean he's always even going to barrel the ball. But I have not seen Lindor befuddled in a very long time.
And moving him to leadoff, that was a great move by the organization. You just, by putting a guy in that position, who's always been good at that position, by the way, you're almost putting a guy who's a really calculated hitter in a position to be even less decisive and be like, the first thing I'm seeing, I'm going after it. And he's been so good at that. He's the best leadoff hitter in baseball, batting over 400 already in that slot. He has mastered how to approach the start of a game. I feel like after Pete, like from Pete downward, or not Pete downward, from the fourth spot downward, there's just so many. Some guys are swinging the first 3 pitches. Some guys are just standing there. Some guys, you're just like, why would you do that? Like, why? Like it's just doesn't make no sense. There's even times, John, and I kid you not, there's times where like they'll swing first pitch, and I've heard, oh, these guys swing first pitch, these guys swing first pitch. But if you look at the other 3 at bats, they didn't swing at all. So like they're literally playing chess with themselves. They're like, oh, I didn't get the bat off the shoulders the last at bat. Let me just see the first heater I see, and they swing. And you know what? I sit there and I'm like, yeah, he swung at the first pitch, but you know what? The last 3 times it was at bat, he didn't get the bat off the shoulder. So, about time he swung the first pitch, it just went against him. But he screwed himself to start the game, which is, to your point, Francisco Lindor is rarely fooled. He has a plan every single time. I feel like I see Francisco Lindor always with Jeremy Barnes. I have never seen him standing next to Chavez. I haven't seen many. And I know this is doing the typical make-believe scenario as a Met fan, but I'm just going by what I'm seeing. Everybody seems to be in love with Barnes because I don't know for what reason. We don't really know the ins and outs. But, Chavez, God forbid you say his name 3 times in the mirror, he'll pop up, and that's it in your house. Like, what's the I don't understand the infatuation. Yeah, he played with the A's. Whoop-de-woo. Like, what? Okay. I don't know.
Yeah. I think I got a couple comments from Carson, and Carson agrees with us as far as
he's yep.
I think there is a bit of arrogance from Chavez that's sort of off-putting to some fans who are not a fan of his. Because I think there's like an arrogance and an aloofness to your point of like where is he? Like, why does he never, like, is he like, well, I'm not, like, Barnes is the assistant hitting coach, so I'll watch the game and Barnes can talk to Lindor. Like, is that part of the thought process? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And again, I'm not trying to do the typical fan thing of speculating from, 8,000 miles away. It just seems as though there's something amiss with the message from Chavez. And I think that's really what irks me about it. Like, whatever happens, I know, again, he can't take the at-bat. I know that it comes down to the guys who are in the lineup and the guy who's in the batter's box at the time. And I also concede that the hitting coach is probably the most overrated coach on a Major League Baseball team. I admit all of that. But there is just something amiss when I look at what this team has done while he's been here, no matter how the personnel has been constructed. I know we've had some really great years from Lindor. I know we've got a big bounce back year from Pete right now that we're all witnessing, more akin to his rookie season in terms of the batting average and the power and the hits at runners in scoring position and seeing a lot of pitches. But I don't know, man. Like, I just think if you're going to credit him for that, and that's been my other argument as far as the hitting coach is concerned. Well, if you're going to credit him when things are going well, then you have to give him blame for when things are bad. I don't think that that's an outlandish take to have. I really don't.
I'll give you an outlandish take. I feel like when his time is said and done, hopefully it improves, but you can mirror his impact or lack thereof on the whole experiments, plural, with Brandon Nimmo. Because Brandon Nimmo has done more transformations than any Pokemon I ever captured on my Nintendo. I'm being honest. And it feels like even this year, the more he struggles, the more I start thinking about what's going on with Chavez. And they were, I don't want to say they were similar hitters, but I guess they had the similar ilk of talent, more or less, in terms of getting at bat. But I think Brandon Nimmo, I feel like Brandon Nimmo, every year, he has to be the only player that I feel like his ceiling goes up and his floor goes down. And I feel like that keeps, growing with this organization because I don't know what he is at times. I feel like I got the on-base guy way back in the day. Then I got the transition into a super powerful outfielder guy. And now I'm getting the overly selective, needs to be a power hitter, but still get on base guy. I don't know. Like, I feel like you're kind of pulling at strings here with the guy. Why don't you just let him be who he is? I'm cool with giving him some power. Clearly, he can hit home runs.
Right.
But to only focus on that aspect of his game, like I just feel like you just kind of like you cut off his nose to spite his face, and it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it seems like Brandon Nimmo is in a bit of an identity crisis. I do agree with that. Let's jump back into the comments here. First, Patty in NYC PB just saying, hello, Keith and John. Excellent. Hi, chat. She jumped in a bit later, so I just wanted to give her a shout out there. Look, a couple different ways to take this as far as the offense is concerned. Rosie K saying, I'll be honest, the Mets offense has been so subpar that I'm not sure how they're going to fare the next 3 series. I don't know. Subpar feels strong, but I don't want to say that that's inaccurate. I would say more boom and bust is how this offense has been, which has been another calling card of Eric Chavez's tenure here. Carson always jokes with us in the group chat saying, the Mets will go into a slump for 4 games where they don't hit with runners in scoring position. Then they'll come out and they'll score 10 runs and everybody will forget about the fact that they didn't score for the first, the last 4 games before that. And Absolutely. I think that's a very accurate way to look at it. DMAC agreeing, saying they do look too patient with runners in scoring position. That's why I won't have an issue with a guy like Azokar even swinging at that first pitch with the bases loaded. Again, it's not like he had a home run robbed or some kind of crazy bat on ball, but he hit the ball hard. He had a line drive to the outfield. He wasn't being too patient. You know what would have bothered me more? A 4 or 5 pitch strikeout. That would have bothered me more than swinging at the first pitch, hitting a hard line drive at an outfielder. I'll take that result much more. I want to get to these comments from Carson because they came in from a while ago, and I think they have a lot to do with the offense, a little bit to do with kind of the pitching as we transition the conversation. But he's saying, this is becoming an if team, and I don't like it. My benefit of the doubt for the offense is running out. Follows it up by saying, it's the fact that I know this team can be way better. Hiding behind a win-loss record is not enough. The quality of wins are more important than the quantity of wins in a 162-game season. I don't know if I agree with the second part of that because you don't throw the wins back, but I do agree with his larger point. And then he finishes it off by saying, I'm labeled as negative, but I just have high expectations for the talent on this roster. Keith, I know that's a lot all at once from Carson, but I do tend to agree with a lot of what he's saying there, where I think we can be critical. Yep. And I think you and I are people who are critical but fair. Yep. I think we're rooting for the team but fair. I think we're honest but fair. And I think sometimes that's what gets us into arguments with other folks because, we'll get labeled. I've been labeled as toxically positive, and I've been labeled as a miserable Mets fan. Sometimes within 2 separate comments. And
you're like boom or bust, like Chavez. You're doing a good job if you was on the Chavez tutelage.
And it's just like, I don't understand how you can be labeled as both of those things simultaneously when you're just being real about what you're seeing.
Well, with respect, you know, a lot of people who probably are calling you these things, they don't know what they're watching either. And
Fair enough.
we have to call a spade a spade. A lot of people who watch baseball, they're watching baseball. They're not reading the game the way you could be reading the game, or Carson, or the next person. See, I watched the game, and I'm watching. I remember the last at bat. He went 3 pitches outside of Pete. Is he going to do it again? And Pete is probably thinking the same thing. So that's how I watch, like the game more or less. But to Carson's comments, immediately reading that and hearing you say that, I immediately said, well, we won 101 games in 2022, and we didn't really hit the ball all that well. Like, respectfully, they were making fun of us because we didn't hit the ball at all. They were calling us the Babbitt Mets. They were saying Strider was out here making all these comments. And I mean, a lot of people didn't like it, but it came to be true because the Mets kind of fell flat. They didn't have nowhere near the talent that they have now. I'm talking about everywhere, even in the dugout. The point is that you don't want to be that team that has a flawed record. You don't want to be like, look at what happened last year. The Brewers ran through the season. But when we played them, we were only worried about them because we never fared well with them. But if you ask a baseball fan anywhere, they'd be like, yeah, they're all right. No one's really worried about the Brewers going off onto the miracle run to the World Series. No one was thinking about that with the Kansas City Royals and stuff like that. Yeah, they're a fun little cute team. I don't want to be a fun little cute team. I don't want to be like, oh, they got Soto and this guy and that guy and that's it. No, I want to be able to tell the world, look at Mark Vientos. I want to be able to tell the world, look at Luis Angel Acuna. Listen, everything points to what he's saying to be true, but everything also points back at you in terms of the Mets, where they have to figure this out themselves. They could hide behind these wins, and that's fine. But they're gonna have to send a message to somebody very soon, because people are, especially New Yorkers. New Yorkers are not easily fooled, if any. They're not stupid. They know what they're watching, and you know what? Tonight could be a really good litmus test for that, because we as fans can sit here and say, we got this, we got that, we're better than them, blah, 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 all that. And then you get punched in the mouth and you're sitting there. You can't say those same things again. You're just saying it just so you can make yourself feel better. It's all good. Your self-therapy is great. You're doing a great job. God bless. But at the end of the day, the end result says that the Mets, the Mets are only 2.5 games up. The Mets should be about 4 games up, respectfully. If you're really being honest, the way they've been winning games, they probably could have won them a lot better in much more winning fashion. I don't want to be the team that's always having to say, we got to come from behind in the bottom of the 8th and the bottom of the 9th. Those are great. Those are fun. But you know what? A 6-1 victory with the offense wrapping this game up before the 6th inning, sometimes we need that. And that right there, it feels like the diet. It doesn't feel like what you eat every day. I feel like what we're eating every day as Met fans is all right, the pitching. And where have we heard that before? We heard that before in 2022 when all those guys got hurt, and somehow the pitching. I'm tired of it. Last year, it was the pitching and the offense for a large part of it. And you saw the best team in baseball, and nobody can argue with that. They were the best team in baseball from, I think, May something or June 1st, and everything worked. We need to hit that stride at some point, because it can't just be this pitching staff.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. Look, I've talked on the show about how, there's been a death of the ace in Major League Baseball. How many of them are there really?
I tell people that all the time. There's 3 of them in the league, honestly.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah, thank God you said that. Ooh, dude, amen.
You can't, and people are like, we just need a pitcher to go 7 innings. That's good luck finding that guy that's going to go 7 quality innings. It's not. I don't want to sit here and be Moneyball about replacing players in aggregate, but that's how you build a pitching staff in 2025. You don't do it the way you did it in 2005. You don't do it the way you did it in 1995. And a lot of people are stuck beyond that. They still think it's 1975. It's not. You cannot expect, great pitching beats great hitting. Great pitching performances, yeah, So bring in the right guy in the right spot. It's just about getting the outs. It's not about having a guy who pitches 7 innings every 5 days. Baseball teams are not built that way anymore. Pitchers are fragile. True aces are gone. And you need to really understand how a team is constructed. It's the same way when people are like, oh, you know, these guys just swing for the fences. Guys just try to hit for power. It is better as a baseball team to try to not hit home runs, but try to square up the ball and drive it, because it is difficult to get 5 hits in a row off of major league pitchers throwing 100 miles an hour. Most games, you look at playoff games and talk about how, you know, oh, this guy will win. This team's going to win off the strength of this pitching performance. Most playoff games turn on their ear because of 3-run home runs.
Yep.
That's how you beat aces. You think you're going to beat, or, you know, you look at whatever the a version of an ace is. The likelihood of you beating Zach Wheeler in the playoffs by getting 10 hits against him is very low. The likelihood of you beating Zach Wheeler in the playoffs by hitting a 3-run home run in the 5th inning and knocking him out of the game in the 6th, much higher. Correct. So I think people lose sight of that. They don't understand how teams are built and how teams need to be built now.
Yep. I think the most important thing that, you know, people want this ace, this magical ace that's going to fall from the grace of heaven. And yet, like, you look at what happened in the postseason. I mean, the Dodgers had about like 4 different guys to close many of those games in multiple series. None of their pitchers went more than 4 innings. People wanted to give Walker Buehler $20 million because he threw 4 innings really good against the Mets. Are you insane? No, you have to really figure out what you want from your rotation. Outs, getting those outs are huge, because I tell this to so many people. I'm like, you know, you can sit here and say like a sport like maybe the NFL, a week-to-week game where there's only 17 weeks. It's like you must win. The grind that these guys go on, and you were saying it earlier with the plane aspect and travel and everything that goes along with that. These guys the human body was not meant for you to torque it all the way back here and release an object at like 90 something or 100 miles per hour. And to do that more than they don't, guys, you know, it's crazy. Guys say, oh, he only made 25 starts this year. He also had throw days. He had bullpen sessions. These guys are throwing at a rate that they probably are meant to break down. It shouldn't shock nobody that these pitchers fall off a cliff, because they to get through 9 innings is insane, let alone to get through 6 now in this day and age is extremely hard. And now the Mets starting pitching lately has started to get into that range of the 6th inning. And it's still not enough for some folks, because it's not what it's just, you know what it is too? It's also like a name factor. Like, Kenny went 6 innings. But, you know, you go around, turn around, and Skeens only went 6 innings. So, like, just as he has that name factor and the bravado and this, that, it kind of gets blurry, honestly, with the way some people view some of this stuff. And it does get frustrating at times.
It does. I just think a lot of people, and it's okay. I'm not trying to be a know-it-all when I say this, but
I gotta stop you there, brother. I'm gonna be honest with you. You gotta start teaching these people how to view the game, because, like you said, we can't go backwards into 1970. They gotta start waking this up.
Yeah,
honestly,
I just think a lot of people don't understand what they're watching and how to watch it.
Bingo, bango, bongo.
And that it's okay to not understand it, but then ask the question, or then don't force the issue, right? Like, again, I'm not trying to make this about me and arguments I get into on Twitter, but, you know, the guy that was talking smack to me the other day, you know, again, you can't sit here and say, oh, this game was punted because of an at-bat in the 4th inning. That shows me that you have no understanding of what you're talking about. It's an at-bat in the 4th inning on May 14th by a guy who was getting a spot start to give a superstar a day off, his first of the year, leading into a weekend where he's about to go into hostile territory and play his former team, a fan base that is fucking obsessed with him, by the way. Like, you can't tell me that you have a grand picture of how baseball works if that's the comment you're making. Or I saw other things where people are like, Azokar shouldn't even be on this team. And I just commented on one of the guys. I was like, do you have any understanding of this organization beyond the 26-man roster? Because if the answer is no, that's okay, and we can talk about it. But if you're going to sit here and be like, I don't care or whatever, or some kind of blowhard comment, it's like, well, dude, it's clear that you don't know, because there is, who do you want to call up instead of Azokar? Jose Siri is hurt. Jesse Winker is hurt. Ronnie Mauricio is on the mend, and he's not been good. Drew Gilbert is on the mend, and he's been okay, I guess. They don't have a lot of other options to turn to. Do you want to see Joey Meneses? I guess you could go that route, or you could call up Jared Young or something like that. But then it's just swapping out parts.
But then, John, here's what happens in about a month. That player you're talking about is in a big spot, and they fail, and they punted the game. What? Guys there's guys, right? Real quick, and I don't want to make this a thing about the other team that we're playing today. A lot of people don't even realize there's a guy named Jorge Vivas. Does anybody know who that is? He's starting today for the Yankees. Imagine a guy like that on the Mets. Oh, why does he belong here? These are the guys, these little, like, I hate to use the word pawn, but I look at a baseball roster like a chessboard. There's your queens, there's your kings, there's your rooks and everything. But those pawns, like they tell you, I'm a chess dude. Pawns are the most important piece on the chessboard, easily, because they serve the biggest purpose. They can sacrifice, they can set you up, they can get you from point A to point B the fastest, and they can take bullets for you. You don't want your big guns taking bullets. Listen, there's a day where Azokar got to get on the field because maybe Nimmo needs a break. Look at the bigger picture. Nimmo's getting a break. If this guy gives you anything, he could go 0 for 3 and give you a sack fly. It's a W. It's a W.
Absolutely. I can't agree with you more. Like, honestly. And just for shits and giggles here, Keith, Jose Azokar has a 278 batting average, a 350 on base percentage. He's only got a 278 slug. I mean, that's not what you're expecting from him, right? He's not going to be a guy who slugs. He's got an RBI. He's got 5 runs scored. He's got a stolen base. I know he's been picked off twice. Like, that's, being a little over aggressive, overzealous. If you're talking about the 26th man on your roster, and realistically, he's more like the 30th man on your roster when you factor in the injuries and the unavailability of some prospects and stuff like that. That is not bad.
Honestly, like, a lot of it came that it was funny because I know a good buddy of mine wanted to keep the Canario guy that was in Pittsburgh, and that's fair. And whatever, there might be talent there, and that's fine. And there's
that's a fine argument. I mean, he's done nothing with the playing time he's gotten in Pittsburgh. I think it was a fine argument to try to keep him. I actually said
I agree.
Get rid of Starling Marte to just try to open up some.
Oh man, we could be here for 2 days talking about Starling Marte. But I get the Canario thing. Like, I understand. Oh, we should have tried to keep him, but then at the time, the roster would have been like, it just would have not make sense. Somebody had to take the bullet, and the Mets knew, damn, we're going to lose this guy. So when I hear the Mets say, damn, we're going to lose this guy, that means the Mets wanted to keep him, right? So the Mets sat there and sacrificed their 30th or 31st guy on the team. That's okay. That's okay. That's why you got layers of players. You have to just be like, next man up. And look, Azokar's not going to be here much longer. Like the biggest shit about this is that this guy's not going to be here much longer. To make it a whole big thing, you know what? You take it and run with it, because honestly, it could be a lot worse. We could start and analyzing the guy you just mentioned, Marte, who, listen, he might give you a really dope at bat. Might hit. You might pop one out. He might. But you're seeing that maybe every 10 days, and Mendy has to get him at bats because of the price tag and the player. He needs to keep him fresh. He needs to also consider what's the mental state of mind of the player, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that's a guy making $20 million that you guys are crying for aces and stuff. Well, the past regime gave that guy a hefty price tag, and we have to live with it. We committed to the guy. So hey, we can't do the, like you said, MLB The Show thing and just move it on and do all this mixing and matching. It's kind of crazy how the Mets just randomly get linked to Luis Robert Jr. Does that not ring a bell to anybody? It could get shot down real quick by a Heyman or whoever. But yeah, let's just make up this rumor. That's not just made up. There's a reason for that, because they are well aware. Listen, we may need to have a need in the outfield. If another guy, God forbid, were to go down, they're going to have to pull the trigger. So that's all it is. To overanalyze the 31st guy on a roster, it's just overkill, and that's just being a GM on the sofa.
Absolutely. Let's jump into a couple comments real quick and then right into the break. Carson saying, there are too many red flags to just shut up and enjoy being 12 games over 500. Talent doesn't mean a thing unless you execute the right way. 8 one-run losses when a noticeable runners in scoring position issue is a glaring issue. I agree with that. Yeah. I think that's a really good point. He also said power versus power. You don't get enough opportunity against good pitching to string 6 to 7 hits together. It's a premium opportunity. You need to take advantage. That's going back to what I was mentioning before about, how you beat these high-level pitchers. Armand saying depth pieces like a Zokar and Vivas get teams through the season. 100% on that. He's also got a good one here from earlier. Said Greg Maddux, to one of your points, said it best. He'd rather face a hitter in a 3-2 count than a 2-2 count because the hitter is anxious to get a hit 3-2. So all really great comments. I've got a couple more starred we're going to get to after the break. Right now, it's John Sapanaro. It is Keith, a.k.a. Keith Diaz, with you here for Til Mets Do Us Part. Ibby out this week. Should be back next week. We should be back in our regularly scheduled time slot next week. All of that stuff, plus your comments coming as soon as we are done with the break here in about 30 seconds. So do not go anywhere. We're live on YouTube. We are live on Twitter. It's Til Mets Do Us Part. Yo, just like that, we are back with Til Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, like we are each and every single week. Although, like I said a few times, a few days later this week, life got in the way of our regularly scheduled episode on Wednesday. We decided to reconfigure things a bit. Keith was gracious enough to come in and pinch hit for Ibby this week. He and I have been talking about doing some fun stuff where we could just chop it up and talk about the Mets anyway. So everything aligned perfectly for us to lead into the Subway Series, big series for the Mets coming up in just about an hour. Don't worry. The show will finish before first pitch. Keith wants to watch it. I want to watch it. All of you want to watch it. We're not going to go long. So we've got about, 40-ish minutes to play with. I didn't ask you, Keith. Are you good with that, by the way?
Yeah, that's fine. We're good.
Okay, cool. Plenty of stuff to talk about before we get back into the conversation. Remember that your best way to interact with the show is by subscribing on the YouTube channel. That opens up the entire suite of things that you can do, including becoming a live participant in the chat. The chat is such an important part of this show. Of course, we've got plenty to say, but so do you, and we want to hear from you. The only way to make sure that your chat is seen is to subscribe to the show on YouTube. And remember, you can also get us wherever you get your audio podcasts. This will drop about an hour or so after the video wraps up. Plenty of ways to get your fix of Til Mets Do Us Part. Ibby usually does the read for Independent Safes, which has been a great sponsor of us here at Til Mets Do Us Part. And I got to be honest, I kind of forgot about it, so don't have the exact read in front of me, but I do want to shout them out because they have been fantastic for about a year with us. And if you go and check them out, independentsafes.com, they've got all kinds of different size safes, and they've got free shipping for you on any order over $99. And spoiler alert, safes are heavy, so they're a lot to ship. They are expensive, and so you're going to spend $100 anyway, and that means they're going to save you on the shipping. They're going to take care of it for you. Keith, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit real quick.
Yes, sir.
Usually, Ibby has a player or a person or a coach or a team or a thought that he wants to put in an independent safe. and lock it away. Close the door, lock them in there. Do you have somebody that you would want to, could be on the Mets, could be on another team? You know, sometimes it's a fan base. Sometimes it's, you know, Brett Beatty when he was struggling and wants to put a guy in a safe. Is there anybody right now that you would put in an independent safe, lock it up, throw away the key?
So many fantasy implications here, honestly. I got a few. Michael Lorenzen cost me a victory in fantasy, so that's one.
Okay.
That was frustrating. Byron Buxton for running into Carlos Correa. He got my backup shortstop on the IL. That's another. Aaron Judge. It'd be nice if he could take 3 days off and then he could come out the safe Monday. That'd be great.
That's a good one.
And you know what? I will wrap it up by saying, you said a team, right? Or a coach?
Yeah, you could anybody, you know.
Okay. All right, cool. Man. Yeah, anytime I could wrap up the Braves. I mean, honestly, I know it's the Phillies, but I have a deep thing with the Braves. So it's so funny that they're being led by Alex Verdugo. What a piss poor franchise that is. But anyways, you know, Matt Olson stinks, and you know, Austin Riley stinks. So I wouldn't pack up everything in Atlanta. I'd keep Alex Verdugo. I genuinely think that it's hilarious that he's their best player right now. So I would pack them all up. Actually, you know, I would pack. He's about to come back. Spencer Strider and Ronald Acuna Jr. They can stay in the safe for a while. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's funny. As I was saying that, Carlos is like, "Who are you throwing into the safe, John?" Because they knew. So thank you for jumping in there. You know what? This is Armand saying, put the people that say Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame.
You know what's crazy? All right, fun fact. As much as I have all these baseball stories, and we even went to the Hall of Fame and everything, I didn't know like the outside world or story of Pete Rose. I didn't know the other stuff. I actually didn't. And I was like, oh shit. Like, oof, that's pretty ugly. I can see why people are so against it. So innocent me, ignorant me, right? Didn't know that stuff. I was like, yo, throw him in the Hall of Fame. And then I'm like seeing everything and I'm reading everything. I'm like, oh shit, I got to rethink that one. That one is I don't know about that one, Keith. That one may not, that's a toughie right there, man. But you can see where I was like innocent in it. You know what I'm saying? Like I really didn't know that stuff went down. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay.
Listen, that was not to put you on the spot. I've got some very strong feelings about Pete Rose. I'm sure you saw the things I've been tweeting the last couple days.
And I was like, damn, maybe I did something wrong. Shit.
No, you know what though? I do think it's fair because somebody did a similar thing where they called me out. You know, I'm zero tolerance on any kind of domestic abuse from players and stuff like that. So I'm always going to call out the guys like Ozuna. I'm always going to call out the Trevor Bowers of the world. And you know, somebody said to me, they were like, hey, John, very, very pleasantly, very kindly. I forgot who it was. Might have even been it was either in the chat here or somebody I interact with a lot on Twitter. And they were like, well, what about Albert Bell? You've talked a lot about Albert Bell deserving to be in the Hall of Fame. And he had an incident where, you know, he struck a woman he was dating or something in you know, whatever, like when he was still playing. And I was like, honestly, I didn't know that. Yeah. It's like, one, it's unfortunate, but you know, this type of, you know, domestic violence against women, all this stuff is so ubiquitous in our society. And it happens a lot with athletes, unfortunately. I wish it didn't, but it happens so much that sometimes you miss them. And also I went back and did the research afterward. And I realized that Albert Bell had done that when I was 12 years old. And I was like, man, I didn't have a point of reference for, you know, guys who play baseball also being domestic abusers and stuff like that. So I was just like, you know what? Like you, I was like, I got to own that. That was my bad. I didn't know. But, you know, it's hard, man. It's hard to keep track of all these things because before I found out about the stuff with Pete Rose, I was like, yeah, put him in the Hall of Fame, man. That guy, like, you know, he's got the most hits. He should be. But I'm also put the steroid guys in. I think Bond should be in. I think A-Rod should be in. I think Manny should be in. I think Clemens
I'm with
should
that.
be in.
Yeah, for sure.
All those guys. So I was like, listen, if it comes down to something as simple as, you know, betting on baseball, yeah, okay, you know, just put him in the Hall of Fame for the numbers alone, whatever. But I think once you start to do like truly bad person shit, that's where it changes for me. And I don't like the argument. I forgot who said this. It might have been Chris Rose on his show, but basically was like, you know, there's always the argument of like, well, what about all these bad people who are already in the Hall of Fame? And it's like, okay, that's fair. I don't know how you would start to take people out that are already in based on something like that. But what you can do is simply not put somebody in that has done something.
Hey, let's not double down and triple down and layer on it. Like we just the solution to it is just make better decisions. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Like you could start the trend by just going forward into the future, not making the same mistakes you made in the past. Yeah. That might be a good place to start. Anyway, let's get back into the conversation with our New York Mets. This one has been sitting here for a minute. I did want to bring it up. Armand saying, per Mike Puma, Mets plan to activate lefty reliever Jose Castillo before Saturday's game. Castillo was traded to the Mets yesterday from the D-backs for cash considerations. I think he's got like an 11 ERA.
Good.
Which, listen,
that's the point. I love it.
Yeah, this is one of those things, man. You don't know what you're going to get, especially with relief pitchers. The guys that don't need to be stretched out, you could get them over here. You identify something about the way they pitch, especially with a relief pitcher, Keith. I think you could get a guy here. You could get him on your roster. Let's say, I don't know a lot about Jose Castillo, I'll be honest. Let's say he throws 3 pitches, right? Let's say he throws a fastball, a changeup, and some kind of breaking ball. You could get him here and you could say, you don't throw the changeup anymore. You throw fastball, slider. And all of a sudden, he goes from an 11
Bing.
ERA guy to a 2.5 ERA guy.
Bing. Yep. Bing. I'm holding him to the standard of the lefty we just lost. His name eludes me at the moment, but the guy who just unfortunately is having Tommy John, not Minter, the other guy, Danny Young. He has to be. He has to hit Danny Young strides. It's not going to be moving mountains, folks. It's not climbing Mount Everest,
Right.
And I'm all like you said it best. I don't know anything about him, and I think that has been the trend of David Stearns. The less I know, the better, because I need to know what he does when he's wearing orange and blue, and that will be the defining moment of how we all accept this young man onto the team. So the Mets need a lefty in the bullpen, and hey, if this is the guy that the front office and the people upstairs with the deep numbers are viewing, and they got him for nothing, then, remember how that turned out with Luis Torrens. So let these guys do their job, and they clearly know what they're doing. They have a very good success rate with it.
I think if you're of the school of thought, like a lot of people are, that you want to have 2 lefties in the bullpen, which I think is a very fair viewpoint to have, you can't complain if your team goes out and adds a second lefty.
Yep.
They had their high level, ace level reliever in AJ Minter go down with a season ending injury. And then they had their next man up, Danny Young, go down with a season ending injury. And they don't have a lot of people to turn to.
Nope.
They did have Genesis Cabrera, and he's been fine so far. After that, they signed Brooks Raley. Brooks Raley's not ready yet, coming off of Tommy John surgery. So, I like a team being proactive. I think you agree with that, right? Yep. Like they identified a need. I think that the organization probably feels like they want 2 lefties in the bullpen. And guess what, Mets fans? Now you have 2 lefties in the bullpen. Yep. If it doesn't work, they'll just cut him and they'll move on. If it does work, it'll be another masterclass from Stearns. So I don't think this is something to get excited about, but I certainly don't think that you should get angry about it because you see a thing like, oh, his ERA is 11.27. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. All that matters is, like you said, what he does in the orange and blue. I want to bring up this one from James Dowling because he kind of started this conversation about Eric Chavez that we had in the first half. And now he's saying, or earlier he said, speaking of the pitching lab, I have to say it, Hefner is still overrated. People still complain about him and his mound visits and stuff. Stearns and Cohen deserve more praise for the pitching. I have been critical of Hefner, although not as critical of Hefner as I have been of Chavez. I am getting to the point where I do see the frustration in the timing of the mound visits or lack thereof sometimes, but I think I'm starting to turn on Hefner to the positive. I think when your organization starts to unlock the things that they're unlocking pitching wise, I get what he's saying about Stearns getting the credit for the pitching lab and Cohen for making the investment in the pitching lab. I don't think you can remove the pitching coach from that equation. I just think it's unfair.
No. Yeah. I mean, I just don't know how you get. I have a very difficult time with this topic because I used to be very anti Hefner, and now I'm like full-fledged Hefner, and
Yeah, you and I both.
I just don't see, and obviously, yeah, it has a lot to do with David Stearns. Yes, he deserves credit, absolutely. But people grow, people adapt, people like learn, people like. If I spent the next 3 months trying to learn Japanese, I'll learn Japanese, guys. Like it'll happen. And if David Stearns said, "This is our philosophy, and you're the pitching coach, and we're gonna make sure that you're on the same page as us," he has to implement that towards Carlos Mendoza. They're all on the same page. If Jeremy Hefner was really overrated, he wouldn't had been invited to that dinner that they had with Yamamoto. Why would they have Jeremy Hefner there then if they didn't value him the way they do? Jeremy Hefner, to me, after Mendy's the number one guy. Jeremy Hefner, to me, has earned it at this point. To call him overrated is actually interesting because you know what? A lot of people will sit there and say, "Oh, you could just get a guy that Stearns will pick." Stearns wants to keep him.
Right.
Stearns is trying his best to keep him. Stearns understands the value of the man. I mean, also too, like to call a bench coach overrated, like we're really digging. Like, I mean, like we're trying our best here to like find a niche into what we like and dislike. I mean, at the end of the day, the pitcher's got to make the pitch, you know?
Yeah. I think I've always said on this show, like when I'm wrong, I'll admit that I'm wrong. And I was down, like you, I was down on Hefner big time. I used to say, who has he made better? That was my biggest argument because you couldn't point to anybody, not objectively. You know, you look at, people are like, oh, you know, Edwin Diaz had that massive year. Well, he had a massive year before he got here. What about the bad year that he had before that one? You know, like there was always a thing where if there was somebody who was better, you could find the flaw in it. Or it was like, you know, what happened to Tyler McGill with the fall off where, you know, he's not pitching to the level that his stuff would show you that he was able to achieve. Well, now when you say, who is Hefner, at least if you want to give the lab some credit and Hefner and all in tandem, who has he made better? The answer is a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The answer is a lot of people.
John, even if we go pre-Stearns, the 2023 season that Kodai Senga put together was all Jeremy Hefner.
I agree.
And I mean, he has his hands on Senga more than anybody. I truly believe that is a Hefner situation through in and throughout. Yeah, the lab is there, but there hasn't been much change in Kodai Senga. If anything, Jeremy Hefner has been the one managing him the best, managing when to use him, how to use him, because he knows him better than anybody. And you could argue he's the best pitcher on the roster right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think what you said before as a knock to Chavez can be brought back up again as a praise to Hefner, which is if the Mets fired Hefner today,
oh my God,
he would have a job tomorrow.
Absolutely.
If the Mets fired Chavez today, where's his next job?
Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah,
Instagram.
he's gonna be like teacher man.
Yes. Yes. Instagram.
That old white dude who friggin'
TikTok. All that. Yes. Absolutely. 1000%. I will put money on that. Yes.
Yeah. So when you look at it from that perspective, I think so. When Carlos Ortiz asks, is it Hefner or the lab? It's both. You have to give credit where credit is due, and I think he's been an integral part of it. So okay. Here's the part of the show where I just admitted that I was wrong with Hefner.
Which is healthy.
Yes. I am not, however, willing yet to admit that I am wrong about Brett Beatty. Brett Beatty has had some great games. I think Brett Beatty is running with the opportunity. Brett Beatty he's having better at bats. He's hitting the ball harder. He's playing like a confident player. I am not taking anything away from Brett Beatty. But Keith, I am not ready to turn and say that this guy is no longer a quad A player because he's had a hot stretch over the course of a week. It's been scorching hot. It's great. Again, I would rather be wrong and have him be another piece that the Mets can use either on their roster or in a trade next year down the line because they just have so many players and they have to shake things up. Fine. but I am not ready to believe in what I'm seeing yet. I'm happy he's doing it. He's helped the Mets win some games, won that one game basically single-handedly for them with that late home run. But you've been critical of Beatty, not as harshly as I have been, though. Do you think that I'm being too harsh on him now?
No, I don't. I think it's okay to have your opinion on a player that you don't want to fall like, you don't want to feel like you were like fooled by, you know what I'm saying? And that's happened to many of us, you know. And I'll tell you this, instead of ready to say I was wrong, how about the fact that he still is kind of leaving it up for you to maybe consider is a little bit of a victory for everybody.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
And the fact that he's still kicking, I got to give the kid a little bit of credit, because at some point we needed to see if he could lift the ball. We're starting to see him do it. Can it happen a lot? Look, at this point right now, he looks like a glove first guy still, and maybe can give you 10 to 15 jacks. If that's the case, then maybe they feel like that's a good platoon between him and Vientos, and it'll work as a combined juncture, and we move forward. Fine. And I think at the end of the day, that'd probably be a victory overall. It might help him, because maybe a team could feel like, oh, they kind of plucked something out. Maybe we could pluck more out, and it becomes a trade piece. At the end of the day, John, I think even if you're right all wrong, the fact that he's still kicking is probably the best situation for us, because
it is. I
think right now the only person that loses from any of this is Mark Vientos, because the longer that this kid is even asking the question, I'm not even saying starting, just asking the question, the more you got to start looking at our guy who went off last year. And I love Mark Vientos, but I also got to sit here and look in the mirror and say, well, do I love what he did last year because Beatty couldn't do it? You know, do I love what he did last year because finally a third baseman other than Mr. Wright did something for this organization? Right. And that has been my biggest thing. As a former third baseman myself, I kind of hold any third baseman to a higher standard. My first 2 picks in fantasy were third baseman. I'm a sicko. But the point remains, shout out to Jose Ramirez and Mr. Alec Bregman. But anyways, the point is that, like, if he's still fighting, I got to give him a little bit of credit for that. I do. I have to give him a little bit of credit for that. If he can be the guy who comes in to really spell Vientos in a slump or light a fire in Vientos, cool. That's fine. If he's just going to serve as that utility bench piece, yes, that would he failed. He failed technically because he's supposed to be a lot better than his first round pick. He failed. But you know what? Some failures aren't as harsh as others. He could have been just living in Syracuse right now. And I don't think he's going to see Syracuse for a while. So you know what? I'll take it at this point, you know, and maybe this leads to him having a better future somewhere else, because he's starting to find it. And you know what, John, at the end of the day, I think that's always been the case with him. It's just probably best for him to be somewhere else. Yeah. But if he can find a little spark here, then it could get him to that point, and then everyone wins, right? And he could be a real everyday player, or try to be, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I think the book is still out, bro. So don't kill yourself because you're not ready. Like I don't. What has been like fucking, excuse my language, it's been like,
it's okay, you can
7 games, like fucking 7 games, like all right, it's a Jeremy Lin run. Let's call it what it is. If it happens for a month, oh shit, all right, I was wrong. No, that's what it is.
I think there's a lot there that I agree with. And James Dowling kind of sums this up well. He says, Beatty has had a good stretch before. Let him keep up the consistency before giving him roses. I think that's entirely fair. Ibby joking around, all caps. Lucky I'm not there, Saponaro. A much more Beatty defender than I have been. But I think the biggest part for me is what I always say, which is I am not rooting against. I have opinions about players, but I am not rooting against any players. Even Beatty, even as harsh as my criticisms have been of him, they have been deserving. To your point, Keith, if he becomes a bench player for the Mets that can hit 10 to 15 home runs off the bench, play a little third base, play a little second base, whatever, and he's here for a couple more years, great. Is that what people expected of him with his first round pedigree and all that stuff? No, but that's a major leaguer. You cannot argue. No one can argue with me that prior to this stretch, he has been not a major league player. He's been rosterable.
Will Salmon even said it in his recent article. He said it is the most fascinating story that if you take out his last like 15 games where he had like an OPS of 1,000, if you look at his career, his OPS is under 600.
Yeah.
And that's not major league quality. That's not. You just look at that, he's not a major league player. Correct.
He has I've touted this a bunch on Twitter. Like, it's obviously changed now with the hot run. I don't have it in front of me, but if you take out those last section of games that Will Salmon was talking about too, it's a guy with a career OPS plus that was somewhere 30-something percent, 35%, 36%, 34%, right in that ballpark, worse than league average. Mm-hmm. That's for his career. That's not a major league player. And so I'm happy he's doing this. And this is where I'll leave it as far as Beatty is concerned. To your point, it is the best case scenario for the Mets because right now he's helping the Mets win. Mm-hmm. Similar to what we were talking about with Azokar, he needs to be here. There's no other players to put on the 26-man roster as it stands right now. The Mets don't have a roster crunch. A roster crunch is coming when Winker gets healthy and Siri gets healthy and maybe Mauricio gets healthy or maybe Gilbert starts hitting. At some point, there's going to be decisions to be made. Right now, there is no decision to make.
I'll do you one better.
He's helping.
I'm going to help you out real quick. You know how you got to view Brett Beatty, my brother? You, no one else, you. Do you remember the run that Solo Sikoa had as tribal chief? Do you remember it?
I do.
Do you remember how quick it came and went?
Yes.
And Solo is still on the roster just there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Brett Beatty, my brother. That's Brett Beatty. Brett Beatty's Solo Sikoa in a nutshell. Yeah. There's just nothing past what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, he might give you a nice match with Cody Rhodes and a nice match with Roman, but after that, without that star power around him, it's just Solo Sikoa. So you just take it for what it is. You know, that's Brett Beatty.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I also think, like, he was so bad where what was his value? Not just to the Mets, but what was his value? Where did it exist in terms of Major League Baseball? If they wanted to put it, he had sunk his whole value so badly that he would literally be the throw-in in a trade. Forget about centerpiece of a trade. Yep. Forget about extra piece, sweetener. He would be the like, oh, could you also please take Brett Beatty from us, please?
That's why they got him at all these other positions to try and find value.
Exactly. And now he has changed that. He is becoming, again, a guy where another team might look at it and say, yeah, we don't want Brett Beatty to headline a deal, but, you want Luis Robert Jr.? Okay, maybe we could talk. You get Brett Beatty into the deal because we need talent and we want more high-profile guys, but Brett Beatty will be a guy who gets the deal over the top. I'm just making this up as a hypothetical. Yeah. But his stock had fallen so far that you'd almost have to take something else back to give up Brett Beatty. That's how bad it had gotten. So
it's happened. It's happened in the past. Yep.
Absolutely. Change the style of the conversation really quickly because we got a super chat from Darren Rivera. Shout out to Darren saying, sorry to block your face, Keith. $9.99 on the super chat. Thank you for that. The Mets have Felipe De La Cruz, lefty reliever, 1.27 ERA and a 75 whip, throwing 98-mile-an-hour fastballs with a slider at Syracuse. Right-handed pitcher Ramon Gomez, 0.69 ERA and hit 104.5 in Brooklyn. Right-hander Dylan Ross, 1.5 ERA, 7.7 Ks per 9 in Binghamton. I think when you look at that, lots of options. I know De La Cruz, obviously in Syracuse, was a guy that they thought maybe would get the call up. He did get knocked around a little bit in his last appearance. And obviously now going out and getting Jose Castillo is just going to allow the Mets to kind of play this out a little bit more with a guy like De La Cruz. And I also think they want to keep De La Cruz, I think, stretched out a bit more as a starter or at least a multiple inning guy before they pull the trigger and add him to the bullpen and then kind of pigeonhole him that way for the rest of the season. But there are some good arms down on the farm. That's not even mentioning what Nolan McLean has been doing.
That guy, he might be the one, honestly. He might be
the one.
And with all the other names throughout the years, he just kind of, and it's funny, like, this happens so many times in Met lore. You get, oh, this guy, oh, that guy, this year, that guy, this year, that guy. And Nolan McLean just do. And
Yep.
then boom, Nolan McLean is the guy, and it happened in the past with Jake. So I'm very excited for that. Very excited. The Mets have pitching. Like no more of the Mets don't develop pitching. No, that doesn't exist anymore. The Mets farm is solid. Now the part is getting them to 41 Seaver weight. That is the challenge. But the Mets develop pitching.
I agree. I think there was a chunk of time where they weren't great at it. Obviously, historically, they've been excellent at it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is also for the Mets fans who are mad about spending $17 million on Frankie Montas. You have to spend $17 million on Frankie Montas when you don't develop pitching. And prior to David Stearns getting here, I get it, Keith. Like, I don't think it's a massive overpay just considering how much starting pitching costs, and what he made last year was like 16.4 and now he's making 17.4. Giving him a $1 million raise isn't crazy, but I do understand the point of like, man, that seems like a lot of money to give to a guy who's mediocre at best, but that is the byproduct of not developing pitching. And now the Mets are really on the cusp. You don't need, I know people are a little down on Sproat and they're high on McLean now. And, Tidwell came up and didn't pitch well, and that's fine, whatever. But you don't need these guys to be aces. You just need these guys to be major league pitchers. Because you see what you can do. Griffin Canning, Tyler McGill, some of these guys, where it's like, you just got to get outs, man, like you said. So I think the Mets are very close to being able to save money on the back end of their starting rotation, because a lot of these guys are closer than it seems. It's not going to be this year for most of them, more than likely, but next year, certainly the year after, we're going to see the Mets being able to invest less in their starting rotation, I think, for sure, in terms of outside the organization, big money to guys who don't necessarily deserve it.
They're going to break. I have this theory that they're going to break the sport. And that theory is, so many people invest in starting pitching. They're going to invest in it by paying like pennies on the dollar, and it's going to break the sport. And people are going to never understand how the hell the Mets did it and still have a payroll north of like 350 or 400, and they're going to break the sport. And I'm actually counting the days. I can't wait for it.
I like that. I like that. I think it's possible. I do think that's where the Mets are trending. D-Mac with a good one on Beatty, saying we should at least agree to stop the efforts to repo his Tahoe. As the person who is championing that, I agree. He can keep the car now. He's done enough.
Nice car.
Juan Soto makes enough money that Beatty has done enough already in just the week or the 8 games or whatever where he can keep the car. He can keep the car.
One last thing on Burt Beatty. You know what I've noticed about him in the little hot stretch that I don't think I've ever saw it in, even in his other hot stretches. He kind of like is. This is gonna sound crazy. Maybe this is the psycho fan in me. He's kind of queued up to like where the camera is, and like he kind of knows like. He just like knows when to take the picture with the boys. He was pulling them like, yo, let's go. Like he just seems a little bit more confident, and a little swagger there. I mean, he looks as plain as bread, yes, but a little bit more, just a little swagger there. So let's see. I mean, I'm just saying, like he would normally just go sit in the dugout and whatever, just be there. And now it's a little bit more kind of conscious. Here's my thing, John. This is gonna sound crazy, but this is not a derogatory statement. I feel like every Met, when they truly become a Met, they have like a gay moment. They just let themselves be like open with themselves. They just let everything, just let the curtain down and just let them be happy. And just let them not care about what anybody says about them. And I think that's when you have your Met moment. And that's kind of like where I'm at with the right fielder. But I feel like once you get through the bullshit and not give a fuck about what anybody says, look at our shortstop. Look at our shortstop. Our shortstop comes to work looking like, I mean, he's at a fashion runway every day. You think he gives a rat's ass about what anybody says about him? No, he's living a great life. So, and the first baseman is the biggest goof and doesn't care about he slides in like a polar bear. Everyone's a goof. So if you could just lower that like very stiff mantra and I know there's pressure on some of these kids, but just like be out there, like let it out. Just be you. The fans will accept you regardless, Yeah,
no, I think there's something to that. Game for War saying, anybody else here An audio issue. I don't know what. I mean, I'm hearing Keith just fine. Usually people let us know in the chat if there's some issues. I'm hearing Keith. Keith, you hearing me? Has there been any issues with?
All good on I am here.
Yeah. So somebody else chime in, see if it's maybe just a Game for War situation. If it is, sorry. That's I don't know how that would work. My setup is the same setup, but it is the first time I'm using it right now in the new apartment. So could be something slightly amiss, but I don't think so. I set up everything the way that it was set up before. So sorry about the audio issue. If you're experiencing it, somebody else chime in, let us know what's up as far as that's concerned. Edge jumping in saying, if Montas comes and contributes, I will never question Stearns ever again. I think that's fair.
Same.
I think that's fair.
Same.
This is a good one. Armand always pulling up, the stats and everything that we need, saying Jose Castillo this year, 5 games, 0-1, 11.37 ERA, 6.1 innings pitched, 3 walks, 3 Ks, 205 whip, and a 9.73 fielding independent pitching. Obviously some of that is ugly, Keith, but I think the one thing that we missed when we were talking about him at the start of the second half is 5 games, 6 innings. That is not a huge sample size. And so what I said before feels even more accurate, where you tell a guy to stop throwing a pitch and all of a sudden he's good. He's good to go. And I think that could happen with him. Now, it could also not work again, but they got him for a song, and they do have guys in the minor leagues who can come up and fill that role. Mm-hmm. And honestly, he's going to be on this team maybe until Bricks Raley's ready. Maybe. Yeah. And maybe he's really good and Genesis Cabrera isn't. And maybe Cabrera's the one who's out and Raley's here. Maybe they can hold Raley a little bit longer. Like, it's a good problem to have. Sometimes you just need a numbers game, especially when it comes to the bullpen. Keith, I don't want to go too much longer because obviously the game's starting in a little under 20 minutes. Yeah. I do want to ask you.
Yes, sir.
You kind of just alluded to it.
I know where you're going.
Yeah, it's Juan Soto related.
Yeah.
I think it's fair. I think it's a good conversation to have, especially as we lead into the Subway Series that's going to start in about 20 minutes. I just want to know, I want you to just fully express yourself on this, because I don't agree with you, but I don't necessarily disagree with you, if you know what I'm saying. Like, I think what you just said about letting it all go and just being you is the part that I agree with. Mm-hmm. Some of the other stuff, I'm like, okay, like I see where you're coming from, but I don't necessarily agree, just because it's strange to me because you and I often have similar viewpoints when it comes to, we spoke about it a lot in the first half of just treating guys, giving them the leeway, giving them. So what is it? And I'm not saying that you're not doing that about Soto, but what is it about Soto to this point where you're just kind of like, man, what is the driving force behind? And I know you're not down on Soto. I know you're the Soto signing, all of that stuff. But my point is just like, what?
Soto, yeah, I love Soto. I mean, it's not to cut you off. Sorry, it's just
no. I was kind of rambling because I don't know how to ask it. So
I know. I
run with it.
I was fine with everything until yesterday, yesterday or today. I think it was yesterday, and he says something along the lines where it's 5,000 people against me and
50,000 versus
one. And it's like, and it's not gonna affect me and whatever, something like that. And he also had another comment early in the year about the missing of the judge, or it could have been taken out of context. And I just feel like everything with this dude, when he opens his mouth, is Yankee centric, and it gets a little annoying. But it's funny because it's not like he misses them, but it's also like, just do we gotta do we gotta get through this weekend so like we could just move the what on? And I have so many good friends that are saying, oh, he's been waiting for the series. He's been waiting for the series. Cool, awesome. He's been waiting for the series. Awesome, that's great. What happens Monday? Like, we just go back to just like meh. Like, and it just is like, maybe I'm just very much a team dude, and I'm not the type to call a guy out, but like when he said what he said yesterday, it's like he still doesn't know what it means to wear orange and blue yet, clearly. And the reason why I say that is because we get a lot of shit from those folks uptown, right? We get a lot of shit from for many reasons other than Juan Soto, right? So he's gonna realize real quick what it's like to wear that jersey, and like, he hasn't gone to Atlanta wearing that jersey yet. You know, he hasn't gone into Philadelphia wearing that jersey yet. He went to Miami, like whatever. There's like 3 people there. The point is that when the Mets are really like the hottest shit in baseball, and we really got people telling him a little bit about himself in a place that he's probably like, damn, I used to come here and they used to like clap for me or whatever. Then we're gonna start, yo, brother, you got about 8 other guys out there that are ready to ride with you. Don't forget, this is not a you thing. And he doesn't come across like a me first guy. He doesn't. But like, this is very much what I'm assuming some people felt when Lindor first got here. Like, there were certain things that he didn't know how to step left when he was stepping right, you know, and some people didn't know how to take it. So I'm taking it with a very much a grain of salt and glass half full, that I'm just like, he's still learning what it is to be here, because I've said this in the past, and this is like a very hot take. For any player of like high elk or value or star status, I think it's very difficult to walk into the Mets locker room. And that's going to sound crazy because all you hear is their tight-knit group and they're so easygoing. But I think that's exactly why it's so difficult, because where do you like find your fit? Where do you find your little clique? Where do you find your comfort zone? You probably were so uptight wherever you were. You know, you had relationships with this person. You never met these guys. You know, it is really crazy. It's like when you go to college, right? It's so much to take in. It's like, where do I find myself, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, yo, I was hot shit in high school. I was, you know, all I had to do was get up and go to school, and I knew where to go left from right. But now I go to college, and it's like a year and a half into college, and I still haven't even seen the whole campus. I still don't even know who's helping me out here, and it's fucking intimidating. So you could only imagine for these guys who have to literally live together, honestly, for like 70% of the year,
right?
And then you gotta, like, you know, he has to get along. Like, he hasn't really hung out with. He has to get to know Mark Vientos. He has to get to know Francisco Alvarez, and so on and so on. Yeah, they made the SNY is gonna show you all the good shit, but you know, there's probably like, you know, he could be a little shy, you know, and that's why I said, like, when you have your Met moment, you just let loose, you know, like, it'll come out. It is very free flowing. It is like the Met way. We have a freaking purple chair in the stadium. Like, there's a welcomeness to this stadium that he hasn't really, or this organization or this culture that he hasn't really tapped into yet, but he will eventually. It's just like, my brother, the more you talk about those folks over there, right, or mention them in any capacity, negative or positive, it's like, brother, that's not what we do here. We kind of just stray away from that. We walk on our lane. I'm sorry to be long-winded. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I think you've explained it really well to give me like a better understanding of where it was coming from. And again, I kind of figured that was it, because you and I are always champion. Like, these people are like they're players, but they're people, and there's the human side of it. And so I didn't think it was coming from a negative place where you're like, oh no, I'm down on this, or I'm upset about this or whatever. I think you're right, dead on about the learning curve. There is just a learning curve about how you need to not just be a Met, but be a Met instead of a Yankee.
Yes.
Also be a high paid player on a new team, regardless of the team. Honestly, regardless of the salary. I know he's the highest paid player that there ever was. I don't know that super matters as much as just like anytime any player signs a massive free agent deal to go to a new team, you have to reacclimate. It doesn't matter if you're a generational talent. It doesn't matter if Soto's been great at baseball since the moment he got to the major leagues. I mean, obviously before that, it's what got him there. But my point is, like, he was a great major leaguer at 19. He was a great major leaguer when he won a World Series at 20. He was a great major leaguer with the Padres. He was a great major leaguer with the Yankees. He's going to be a great major leaguer with the Mets. But now he's signed a deal. He left those teams. He didn't have sort of kind of a choice when it comes to, you know, being a kid and signing with the Nationals, but didn't have the ultimate free choice there. Yeah. Didn't have a choice to go to the Padres, was traded there. Didn't have a choice to go to the Yankees, was traded there. He made a choice to come here. They gave him 800 million reasons to do it. I understand that, but he made a choice to come here. And now there's a little bit of like, okay, I have to live up to that. There's a little bit of I have to I have to introduce myself to a new fan base. And I do think there's a very strict learning curve for some of that stuff. And I think you're right, where it's just kind of like, we don't talk about, like, you're better off just not talking about the Yankees. You're better off playing it off. You're better off, like, you don't have to be so don't be something you're not, but like, we're not the Yankees. You don't have to be corporate. We've got the purple seat. You could do what Luis Severino did and be like, you only have 2 good hitters. Imagine they asked Soto what it was like, like, how's it feel to go back? And he's like, well, now they only have 1 good hitter. Imagine he would have said.
But see, that like there's, you can see that, like, there's this invisible barrier that's keeping him from just like free flowing. Like, I keep going back to this moment, right? And this has nothing to do with Soto, but in so many ways it does. And I know we're about to be on game time, but last year I went to the park, and I wish you weren't on the West Coast, because you would see it and feel it so much. Like, I just wish that for you, honestly. I went to the park. It's the middle of August. They're in every game's a playoff game at that point last year. 7th inning stretch, John. I kid you not. People in the chat will agree. I look up at this big, beautiful scoreboard our owner put together for us, and Spider-Man is dancing with Batman. I mean, come on. Like, where are you seeing that else? You're not seeing that at Yankee Stadium. They're probably like, there's like a very mental, like, vacation that, like, he's probably on, that he has to find himself here. And I think he will. It's just going to take some time. It's just frustrating when he mentions dumb, I know he's still fresh, but Jesus Christ.
No, I get it. And I think because people are going to make those comparisons anyway.
Yep.
And I think he can find an easier way, a better way, and a more playful way, or whatever his personality is, to kind of just deflect it. He seems like certainly a guy who can have fun, but like, he seems a little bit more businessy in his approach. And that's fine too. But he doesn't seem fundamentally different from like how Lindor is, like, actually, like, now that we've gotten to know Lindor. I think Pete is in a different kind of atmosphere. Pete is like, he's like Eli Manning. Like, he's just like a big goofy, like,
very
very Eli Manning. It's just like
very Eli Manning.
Pete, like, I don't know how to explain this any better. Pete looks like he was drawn by Hanna-Barbera. You know what I'm saying? Like, he just looks like Yogi Bear, kind of like, he's just like kind of droopy and like whatever. And that's a different kind of cat, man. That's a different kind of dude. And I think part of it is, for us fans, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we know who Juan Soto is yet as a person.
I agree.
And Met fans like to know who guys are. We know who Lindor is now, and we love it. We love him for it. Some guys, it's easy because they wear it on their sleeves, right? Like Jesse Winker.
Yep.
You know who Jesse Winker is the moment he shows up.
Yep.
Now, he doesn't have the expectations that come with a guy like Soto, but there's no doubting that, like, you see Jesse Winker with the long hair, wearing no shoes out in the outfield, being like, I'm just trying to be a girl dad. Like, you're like, I get it. I know exactly what you're about.
Mm-hmm.
Soto's it's a little mysterious.
He's still got the suit and tie on. He's still got the suit and tie. Yeah.
And we don't want the suit and tie. Because I don't know about you. I know there's been a lot of discussions about, under Cohen and Stearns, this becoming a franchise that people want to be a part of, and it's a franchise that other franchises and fan bases will be envious of. And I do want that, but I don't want the Mets to ever become corporate. The Mets are not corporate. I want them to keep the silly mascots, and I want them to keep the purple seats. And so, like, I don't want there to be a thing where it's like, the Mets don't need gimmicks anymore. Give me the gimmicks, man. The gimmicks are fun. You want the winning. I want the winning, but I want the gimmicks too.
Hell yeah. Of course. Absolutely. 1000%.
So, that said, let's get out of here in a second. Really quick, your thoughts on these 3 games. We don't usually break down the games or anything, but it's about to happen, and it's the Yankees and it's Yankees Mets. So, are you going to any of them? Are you?
No. I'm not going. I'm not going to the DMV or the library this weekend, but I will be there for the 4th of July game in a proper baseball park.
Fair enough.
One where I don't have to get patted down, But They got to win tonight. Honestly, I think for them to have a chance in the series, this stems back to how we started the conversation. I don't like how they're playing right now because of what I saw with Pittsburgh. So just show me something tonight. I think they're gonna win tomorrow, no matter what happens tonight. I think tomorrow definitely they're gonna win, but don't pitch to Judge and give yourself a chance, like Luis Severino said. Just make sure you avoid damage from that guy. That guy right now is amazing. So you gotta give him
he's
all
on another level.
Yeah, give him all the credit in the world. Just don't make him beat you, and we'll just expose the rest of that lineup. But Rodon's had a nice little start. It'd be nice to hit him a little bit. Sunday, very difficult game because Max Fried is pitching very well. Peterson's gonna have to match that. It's gonna be very difficult. But just take 2 out of 3 and just get to Boston. By the way, I'll be in Boston first time ever Monday.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Yeah,
I've never been there. If I lived on the East Coast, still that would probably be a series I went to, not Yankee Stadium. Just to go up to Boston. I mean, it's a good time of year to go to Boston. The weather's nice. You can get a lobster roll. You can really enjoy the whole thing. Are you going to stay for a bit or are you just going?
Nah, just for the day. Yeah.
Okay.
The series Monday through Wednesday. So kind of I just took the day. We're going to just explore Boston and then we'll head to Fenway a little in the afternoon and just take it all in. I've always wanted to go. I want to check it out. But yeah, should be fun. I decided to spend my money going there rather than to go to Central Booking over the weekend. So.
Keith, this has been awesome, man. Thank you so much for pinch hitting for Ibby. I know a lot of
shout out Lenny Harris, by the way. If you know, you know.
I know a lot of the fans of our show overlap with the fans of your show, but
in
case there is someone here either live or after the fact when we're done with the live stream watching this, or on the audio side where they have not heard you before, where can they find you and your show and all that stuff?
So we're Shea and Son at Shea and Sons. Right now, little lull because had a team with me before putting it together. Now I just shrunk it down to little old me. So content may be at a pause for the moment. We kind of find a new direction, but I'm figuring that out as we go. But if you need to find me, you want to chat it up with me, you want to have a long back and forth that me and John normally have with folks on Twitter, you can find me at Kicking It with Keith. I'm very easy to find, honestly. You'll find me on the timeline. But stay tuned. We'll figure out what we'll do with Shea and Sons in the due time. But again, it was an honor to be on here and to pinch hit for Ibby, who's also a great host. You guys do an amazing job. I love what you do. It's just, honestly, it's dope that you guys even consider me. So thank you, actually, for shooting me the invite. That was very sweet of you. I'm actually really bad with DMs. So please don't forgive me that I was late, but thank you again. I get a lot of DMs from Met fans that want me to answer these outrageous questions. And I just I'm thinking about closing DMs, but I got all the chats open. So I'm can't do that though. So
well, listen, the pleasure is all mine. I appreciate the kind words. Do you have do you have an outlandish question that somebody has asked you off the top of your head that you can share?
Oh my God.
I know I'm putting you on the spot, but you're gonna set me up like that. I gotta ask you.
I got asked just today. Does Lindor's wife look mad at him that he took a picture with Shakira? I got asked that today. And
that's a pretty good one.
I was like, you know what? Yeah, she's furious with him. Yeah, I just said that's all I said. She's furious with him. Hates him. She's gonna divorce him tonight. Jesus
tonight,
Christ.
during his at bat.
Lord have mercy. Man, you move on, right? That's being a Met fan,
And shout out to everything you're doing with Queens baseball.
Thank you.
It's
Collective.
really dope.
Thank you. You're a part of it too. We're all a part of it.
But it's a good community because sometimes the Mets community can be a little difficult to say the least. And also, shout out. I know it's not any affiliation to you or to me, but I've been meaning to say this for the last couple of weeks. Shout out to the Queens of Queens. That all lady Mets fan group that was started. It's just really dope to see that. A lot of really cool women involved in that. I've seen their interactions and everything, and making sure people got tickets to games, people giving away tickets, stuff like that. That's what it's all about. That's what that stuff is all about. And I think it was Brianna who's the creator of that, or at least one of the co-creators of that. And that's great. Stuff like that is so dope, and it's nice to see so many people in the Mets community starting to truly embrace the community aspect of it. You know what I mean? Like, because
Absolutely.
we've had a lot of times, like, dude, I went to games. I got friends who work at SNY, and I have friends who were at the Mets, work at the Mets, and I've done some stuff for the Mets. So like, I've had opportunities to get free tickets for a while in my existence when I lived in New York and stuff. And dude, there would be games I would get free tickets to a game, as many as I want. If you want 4, you want 6, you want 10, go to this game. And I couldn't get anybody to go with me.
Yep.
And
I
would
remember those days.
I would get 4 tickets, and I would go and I would sit by myself because nobody
remember,
wanted to go.
I remember those days.
And this is not, this is not the worst team money could buy in the early 90s. This is not the doldrums of the 60s. Like, you're talking like 8 years ago. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I've been there. I've been there, brother. I've been there.
So it's nice to see Citi Field packed, rocking. It's nice.
You got to make it out, bro.
Queens.
You got to make it out.
I do.
You really do. It's a movie. I'm gonna be honest with you. Best night to go is a Friday night. The Friday nights are like the shit. Honestly, you really will like it. You really will.
That is something I will consider. I don't have plans right now to come back, but probably before the summer is over, I'll be back. My girlfriend she's from Queens, like Stone's throw.
Yeah, come on.
City.
Let's do the whole group chat. Friday.
Yeah.
Let's just do it.
Absolutely. We'll set that up. Well, anyway, guys, game is going to start in a couple minutes. We'll get out of here. Thank you to everybody in the live chat. Thank you for the couple super chats.
John, I love you. Ibby, I love you.
Thank you, Keith. This has been awesome. This is Til Mets Do Us Part. We'll see you next week back in our regular time, Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, LFGM. Keith's out of here. I'm out of here. See you guys later.